You said it yourself the last time you stood over an open hood with a can of that bright orange engine degreaser from the parts store shelf, heart full of good intentions and a Saturday afternoon ahead of you, that you were finally going to make that engine bay look factory fresh again. You shook that pressurized can, aimed it at the grimy intake manifold, let the foam roll across every surface, and walked away feeling like you had done something right. 2 days later, your check engine light came on. You plugged in your OBD scanner and stared at a throttle position sensor fault you had never seen before in 3 years of owning that car. You cleared it, it came back. You took it to the shop, and the technician pointed a flashlight at your throttle body harness and showed you something that made your stomach drop. The connector pins were filmed with a pale white corrosion that had not been there before. The insulation on the wiring closest to the intake was slightly tacky, slightly swollen, in a way that rubber simply should not be. The technician told you that whatever you sprayed in there had gotten into the connector and started an electrochemical reaction that was slowly turning your sensor signal into noise. The repair bill for a throttle position sensor replacement, a new wiring pigtail, and 2 hours of diagnostic labor came to $460. $460 for cleaning your engine. You used a product designed and marketed specifically for cleaning engines, sold in a store dedicated to cars, and it destroyed a sensor and started attacking your wiring. That is not a freak accident. That is the predictable, documented, and completely ignored consequence of spraying a high pH caustic alkaline formula onto a mixed metal, mixed polymer engine bay with live electrical connectors, bare aluminum castings, and rubber that is already under thermal stress. The can never told you that. The brand never told you that. The parts store employee who pointed you toward the shelf never told you that. And the reason none of them told you is sitting right there on the ingredient disclosure panel in the language of deliberate obscurity, hidden behind trade names and concentration ranges broad enough to mean almost anything. What they are selling you for $14, $16, $18 a can is a formula engineered to produce a single dramatic visual outcome, a fast, foamy, brown runoff spectacle that makes it look like tremendous chemical work is happening, because that spectacle is what sells the next can. What actually happens to your aluminum and your rubber and your sensor connectors in the process is a cost the brands have decided you will absorb without connecting it back to their product. Today, that stops. What I am going to show you costs $2. It works through the same fundamental chemistry as every grease-cutting product on Earth. It will not touch your anodizing, will not swell your rubber, and will not leave corrosive residue creeping toward your electrical pins for days after you rinse. And when you see how simple this is, you are going to feel the same quiet, specific anger that I felt the first time I understood what these aerosol brands are actually selling. If you are new here, hit subscribe right now, because this channel exists for one reason: to pull back the curtain on the automotive product industry's most profitable lies and give independent car owners the knowledge that dealership service departments and parts store shelf tags will never volunteer. Every video on this channel is built on verifiable chemistry and real engineering, and this one is no different. Now let me show you what is actually inside that orange can and why a $2 bottle sitting in your cleaning supply cabinet right now outperforms it on every technical metric that actually matters for your engine bay. The product the major brands are selling you as a precision engine cleaning formula is, at its core, a high alkalinity aqueous degreaser. That means the active mechanism is pH, not some proprietary molecular technology, not an aerospace-derived solvent system, not a formula refined through decades of engine chemistry research. It is a water-based solution pushed to a pH of between 11 and 13 on the standard scale, which is the same pH neighborhood as oven cleaner and concrete etching solution. The reason pH matters here, the reason this specific number should concern every person who has ever aimed one of these cans at a modern engine bay, comes down to what happens to aluminum at that alkalinity level. Aluminum is the dominant metal in your modern engine bay. Your intake manifold is aluminum. Your valve covers are aluminum. Your throttle body housing is aluminum. Your power steering reservoir bracket is aluminum. Your alternator housing is aluminum. All of those surfaces are protected from atmospheric corrosion by a microscopically thin but chemically robust layer of aluminum oxide. That layer forms naturally and continuously as long as the underlying metal is not chemically attacked. It is not a coating you apply, it is not a product you buy. It is a self-regenerating electrochemical shield that has been doing its job quietly since the day your engine was cast. Aluminum oxide is stable across a wide pH range, roughly 4 to 9, which covers almost every environment your engine bay will naturally encounter. But push the pH above 10 and the dissolution curve changes dramatically. Above pH 10, aluminum oxide begins to saponify, meaning it reacts with the alkaline solution and converts into soluble aluminum hydroxide, which simply rinses away with the next stream of water. Once that oxide layer is gone, the bare aluminum underneath is directly exposed. Bare aluminum corrodes aggressively in the presence of moisture, road salt, and the trace electrolytes present in any engine bay environment. What you see as a dull, chalky white residue on your intake manifold after an engine bay detail is not leftover degreaser. It is the early visual signature of accelerated aluminum corrosion on a surface that just had its natural protective oxide layer chemically stripped by a product marketed as a cleaner. That is not a cleaning outcome. That is a degradation outcome. And the rubber tells the same story. The hoses, gaskets, grommets, and wiring insulation in your engine bay are formulated from a range of elastomers including EPDM, neoprene, nitrile, and various silicone blends. These compounds are chosen for thermal stability and resistance to petroleum hydrocarbons, but they share a common vulnerability to prolonged contact with high pH alkaline solutions. The alkaline hydrolysis of rubber polymer chains is a well-documented industrial failure mode. What it looks like in your engine bay is subtle at first: a slight surface tackiness, a faint swelling at the thickest cross sections, a loss of surface gloss that precedes cracking. If the exposure is repeated, if you detail your engine bay every few months with a high pH aerosol, you are accelerating the service life degradation of every rubber component under that hood. The hose that starts seeping coolant at 80,000 miles instead of 120,000 miles, the intake boot that cracks and throws a massive vacuum leak at 110,000 miles, those failures have a maintenance history. The aerosol can is part of that history. Now here is the moment where the picture on the screen, the one showing a standard all-purpose cleaner concentrate sitting next to one of those glossy commercial engine degreaser cans, stops looking like a joke and starts looking like the most obvious thing you have ever seen. A quality all-purpose cleaner concentrate, the kind sold in a simple bottle for under $2 at any grocery or warehouse store, is an anionic surfactant solution. Its mechanism for removing petroleum grease is not pH aggression, it is molecular emulsification. The surfactant molecules in an APC concentrate are structured with a water-loving hydrophilic head and an oil-loving hydrophobic tail. When you apply a properly diluted APC solution to a greasy surface, those molecules orient themselves at the oil-water interface, wrap around grease and oil particles, and suspend them in the rinse water as micelles, tiny spherical structures with the oil trapped inside a surfactant shell. The grease lifts off the surface and goes down the drain with the rinse water. The aluminum surface underneath was never exposed to a pH above 9. The rubber was never contacted by anything more aggressive than mildly soapy water. The electrical connectors were never bathed in a solution with the electrochemical potential to initiate pin corrosion. The same fundamental grease removal outcome, achieved by a completely different mechanism. At a pH your engine bay materials were designed to tolerate indefinitely. The commercial brands know this. Every formulation chemist working for a major automotive fluid brand understands the difference between a surfactant degreaser and an alkaline degreaser. The choice to go alkaline is a marketing decision, not an engineering one. The alkaline formula produces faster visual results on heavily contaminated surfaces. It makes the brown water run faster and darker. It makes the before and after photographs more dramatic. It sells more cans. The fact that it does so by chemically attacking the surfaces you are trying to protect is a trade-off the brand made on your behalf without consulting you. Let me walk you through the exact protocol I use on every engine bay detail, starting with the tools and ending with a clean, protected bay that your aluminum and rubber will thank you for. You need a spray bottle, a bucket, your APC concentrate, 2 microfiber towels, a soft bristle detailing brush, and access to a low-pressure water source, either a garden hose on a gentle setting or a pressure washer held at significant distance and kept well away from any electrical components. Start by letting the engine cool completely. This is not optional. Spraying any aqueous solution onto a hot intake manifold or exhaust adjacent surface will cause immediate thermal shock and uneven evaporation that can push residue into crevices before you have any opportunity to rinse. Cold engine, full stop. Mix your APC concentrate at a 10-to-1 dilution for standard grime accumulation. If your engine bay has significant built-up grease around the valve cover gasket area or oil residue around the crankcase breather, go to a 6-to-1 dilution on those specific spots only. Fill your spray bottle, agitate gently, and begin by misting the entire engine bay starting from the firewall and working toward the radiator. You are not flooding. You are creating an even, fine coating that can begin dwell contact with the greasy deposits. Let it sit for 3 minutes. Do not let it dry. In warm, dry conditions, you may need to mist lightly again at the 90-second mark to maintain active wet contact. Take your soft bristle brush and work in sections, starting again at the firewall. Use short, circular strokes on flat surfaces and light back and forth strokes in grooved or ribbed areas. You are not scrubbing aggressively. The surfactant chemistry is doing the molecular work. You are simply providing mechanical assistance to dislodge particles that have bonded physically to the surface texture. Rinse each section immediately after brushing with your low-pressure water source. Keep the stream at a gentle angle to flush the emulsified grease away from the surface and down toward the lower bay. Here is the critical warning you must internalize before you ever start this process, and it applies regardless of which cleaning product you choose. Never direct any water stream, low pressure or otherwise, directly at your fuse box, your battery terminal connections, your alternator, your mass airflow sensor housing, or your ignition coil connectors. These components are weather resistant under normal operating conditions, but they are not waterproof under direct spray. The mass airflow sensor in particular is catastrophically sensitive to liquid intrusion. A single drop of water on the sensing element, which is a microscopically thin platinum wire heated to a precise operating temperature, will cause it to fail instantly and completely. A replacement MAF sensor on most modern vehicles runs between $150 and $300 before labor. You will also want to pre-wrap your air intake opening with a clean shop towel tucked firmly into the inlet if you are working around that area at all. Water in the intake is a hydraulic lock waiting to happen on startup if any meaningful volume makes it past the filter housing. Treat all of these areas as exclusion zones and work around them with your brush alone, using a barely damp microfiber to wipe those surfaces by hand rather than applying any spray or rinse. After the full rinse cycle, take your dry microfiber and wipe down all aluminum surfaces to pull the last of the rinse water before it can evaporate and leave mineral deposits. Start the engine and let it idle for 5 minutes. The residual heat will flash off any remaining surface moisture from the deeper recesses you could not physically reach with your towel. Your engine bay is now clean, your aluminum oxide layer is intact, your rubber is uncompromised, and not a single electrical connector has been introduced to a corrosive alkaline residue that will spend the next 72 hours slowly working its way toward your sensor pins. Total cost of the cleaning agent used in this process, approximately 12 cents at a 10-to-1 dilution from a $2 concentrate bottle that will last you 30 or 40 engine bay details before it is empty. 12 cents versus $18, safer outcome versus documented degradation risk. Same grease removal mechanism as every professional grade industrial parts washer on Earth, just scaled to your engine bay and your wallet. The commercial Aerosol brands built a product designed to look impressive at the cost of your aluminum, your rubber, and your electrical system. The $2 concentrate does the chemistry correctly, because correct chemistry was never the point of the expensive can. The point was the dramatic foam, the dark runoff, the feeling of powerful chemistry at work, a feeling you paid $18 to experience while your intake manifold lost its oxide layer in the background. Share this video right now with every person in your life who takes pride in a clean engine bay, because the next time they reach for that orange aerosol can at the parts store, they deserve to know exactly what it is actually going to